Marriage. Is it something that we need to talk about in 2025? Yeah, it is. Divorce rates are still pretty high in America and maybe across the world. But today's video we're going to be reacting to is Andrew Schulz and a divorce lawyer talking about marriage. That's literally the video title. Link to the original video down in the description below. If you like the conversations and discussions and reactions and anything we talk about here on this channel, subscribe and like. You know what to do. Now get your keyboards ready. I want to see you in the comments. With that out of the way, let's get into it.
Marriage originally was designed culturally for the purposes of maintaining land ownership.
I kind of want to,
clans.
like, I actually, after we get into this discussion, I'd really like to know some of the history of marriage.
Yeah.
Like, why it's continued to be around. Like, if this is something that didn't have societal utility, I think that we
who were the first people that were like, this is going so great, we should get the government involved?
Yeah.
You know, like, that's fucking weird.
It does seem weird that's an interesting thing. Even when my wife were going to get married, I was like, I really don't care that the government knows about this. Right. It's important to me that you and I know about this, and we are committing to one another. And I think for them, I think that the idea that the government knows about it makes it feel more real because of like societal expectations or whatever.
But you know what's an interesting thing I've always found.
Yeah, but I mean, he worded that a little weird. Not like to like cancel him or anything like that. I just thought that was a little weird. Yeah, of course. If you love somebody, you would want to marry them. There's always prenups, so like, why are you so worried? You know, like, yeah, I don't know, but. I don't know. If I'm getting married, I want everybody to know, and I want the government to know.
Found fascinating is if you said to me, you know, Jim, I'm thinking about buying an airplane. If I said, oh, really? Why? That's not a rude question.
Yeah.
You would say, oh, you know, I fly a lot, and it'd be nice. I wanted to learn how to do it. Okay. If you're dating a girl for a certain period of time, and you say to me, you know, Jim, I'm thinking about getting married. And I go, why?
Yeah.
That's rude. Why is that rude? This is a technology that fails 56% of the fucking time.
Yeah.
And let's say there's another 10, 20% that stay together for the kids or because they don't want to give away half their shit.
Yeah.
Why is it rude to say to someone, you guys are getting along, you're in love, you're having fun.
Yeah.
Why do you want to get the government involved?
Yeah.
Like, why? What? My whole thing is, what is the problem to which marriage is a solution?
That's crazy. That's good. That's good. I mean, look, listen. I believe maybe I'm a little more traditional in the sense that like marriage does have some symbolic value, right? I do think it has, like when you talk about in the Bible and different religions have some type of, which I guess you can attribute to different cultures in different countries, but I just think there is some symbolic value, right? It's a great media, it's a great technology, a great form of creating something official that's not just official between you two. A bond that is a little bit more serious, a bond that could technically break, if that makes sense, or that has to be broken for it to break. But what does it solve, really? I guess outside of like just making sure that things stay in the family, like property or assets, I don't really know. Like because I would see why people would want to, like, let's say it's a house, you get married, stays in the family, whatever. But I don't know. That's an interesting statement.
Like, what is the problem to which marriage is like anything else in your life? You could answer that. What is the problem to which this is a solution? It's hard to hold water in my hands, so we need a container for it. What is the problem to which this is a solution? It's nice to be able to talk to people when they're not in the room. Okay, what is the problem to which marriage is a solution? I'm lonely?
No,
marriage doesn't solve that problem.
For women, to answer your question, I thought you brought up a really great point when it came to like allocating time with the kids in a divorce, which was like, if a dad has every other weekend, it's kind of looked at like, oh yeah, okay, he's got a job, he's a divorced dad. If a mom is every other weekend, she's looked at like a psychopath, right? So I do think that women that are in long-term relationships but aren't married feel a societal scrutiny.
Sure.
Will he not commit to me? Does he not really love you? Is he trying to protect his money or his assets or something like that?
But I see what he's saying, but I think he. This goes back to the symbolism, right? I think it's much more about security, right? I think, like, look at it this way. I don't think it's necessarily the scrutiny, right? I don't think it's scrutiny. Especially in 2025. If anything, it feels like the lonely cat ladies are the ones that have all the power, weirdly. At least in online discourse, and policy making for some reason. I don't know why. But I think it's more of like, let's say I'm a 35-year-old woman, right? How dare you assume my sex and my gender? I'm canceling you. I'm just kidding. No, but let's say I'm a 35-year-old woman, right? And I'm like, you know what? I want to settle down and get serious. I don't want to go dating anymore. I just want one person I can share the rest of my life with. What that marriage does allows for some type of consistency in your life. Something that says, you know what? I can expect this person to be by my side until I die or until the marriage ends. Or until someone dies or the marriage ends. Right? I think it's more security than anything. And having something consistent in your life, because that's what I would want to see it as mine too, right? As somebody who's becoming more of a creator and an internet influencer, I guess marriage is a little bit more scarier for me because I don't want to be taken advantage of by marriage. So it's something to think about. Like, I think for the most part, average people just want some type of consistency in writing.
And I think a lot of times that informs their decision to, quote unquote, get the government involved. It's less about the government. It's more about, like, how will society view me as this person's partner? Mm-hmm. Like, and is it a lack of commitment? Which obviously now, like, if we remove the emotion from it, we can unpack and go, yeah, it doesn't change anything in that relationship. And you can literally not get married, but you can sign a contract with some lawyers about how assets can be distributed. Like, you can have the government play no part of it.
And if you, by the way, don't even know what role the government plays in that, it's kind of a fiction. And by the way, like, you trust that Mark is married.
Yeah.
Have you checked the fucking paperwork ever?
Exactly. Yeah. No.
Like, honestly, like, if you ever gone to a wedding, and after at the end gone, lovely ceremony, great pigs in the blanket at the cocktail hour. You see the paperwork?
Yeah.
They go, I'm sorry, well, no, the marriage license. I just want to make sure. Like, your parents might not be fucking married. But did you check the paperwork?
I've never looked.
We know about the nurse outfit. We don't know about the paperwork.
They're so low.
So you're
speaking
by the way,
logically.
have as many fucking weddings as you want, guys. Like, getting married. It's lots of fun. It's a great party. I'm all for it. I fucking love weddings because I like pigs and blankets. But the truth is, like, does that mean you actually have to go sign a marriage license and get the government involved? Not necessarily.
Let's.
You know what's funny? I think it's because he's a marriage lawyer, right? So he's basically a marriage lawyer, a divorce lawyer, really. I think it's. It's funny because it's like you would think you would want more marriage because it would lead to more divorces, and he would make more money. But I think he'd probably at the point where it's like, guys, it's getting out of hand. Because if you've ever heard about divorce stories, it's some of the most annoying and petty shit that exists on the planet. So it's like, just imagine dealing with two very petty people all the time for a living. I can see why he's like, guys, if we don't need marriage, just come up with a different contract because this is getting annoying. It's just like, guys, come on.
Let's real quick. Let's just divide this up. What you're not saying that having a partner that you guys dedicate your lives to each other and grow a family with is bad.
Not only is it not bad, I think it's the best thing in the world.
It's incredibly important.
Yeah, it's the best pair bonds, like relationships, love. Like, what is better than love?
Nothing. I guess what happens is I think when people hear the word, like, why would you get married? They often assume that you're like, have a few girlfriends, or don't commit to one person, or it's not going to work out. Right. You're pro relationship. You're pro.
I'm pro monogamy.
You're pro monogamy.
I'm
pro family.
I'm pro people building families together. Look, there's a reason why throughout the history of humankind, pair bonds, monogamy, like this exists for biological reasons. It exists for social reasons. But if I saw a correlation between love and marriage, and love being sustained by the fact that you've married, I would be the biggest fan of marriage in the world. Right. What I see is the opposite. But what I see is people dating and in love, who then sign on for a contract that they do not understand at all.
Yes.
And then I think it becomes almost antagonistic to it because our society is considers it so acceptable. Come on, listen, look at every group of women you've ever seen out who are married, okay? And one of them is not married. And the one who's not married is talking about a guy who she just started dating, and they all are, oh my God, he sounds so great, he's so wonderful, it's so great, oh my God, what did he, oh, he did that, he's so lovely. And then when they talk about their husbands, oh, yeah, he's such a, I mean, you know, and then he comes home, and all that is the guy that she's talking about a couple of years down the road. Like marriage.
He's making too much sense. I kind of like, I'm still very traditional. I'm still going to be pro-marriage, but I do think that maybe the discussion that needs to happen is, are we informed on what really marriage is and what this is going to be? And you just gotta understand it, because I think that yes, divorce rates are high, but it's only because people who are getting married shouldn't be getting married. Not that people who should be getting married are not. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't know if that makes sense, because there's a lot of, I know countless people who've been married for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Okay, so, and they're happy. Now, obviously I don't know their marriage, but they present as happy. So there's still some testament to that, I guess. But I just think that like it's just, as long as you understand, I think you'll be all right. Because like, look at what happened with same-sex marriages. All these, not saying that they shouldn't get married. I think they should, and have the option to, but they were fighting for same-sex marriage. When they ended up starting to get married, what ended up happening? Divorce rates go up and domestic abuse went up. So, it's just one of those things where like, you would think that would be a great solution, or like they want to be like everyone else, but unironically it created more problems for their own community. So, and again, with more divorces per percentage, right? And then an exponentially high increase in domestic violence that already is exponentially high in the LGBTQ community. So, which, if you don't know that, yes, LGBTQ, for as much as they claim to be loving, for some reason abuse one another consistently. I don't know what's going on over there.
Becomes very antagonistic to this situation. Says the guy who's been married how many years now?
I don't know.
Like, okay, so the reality is, like, listen, I'm telling you, the previews is always the best part of the movie.
No. What I'm trying to say is, specifically, one, like, when everybody knows that you're married, it's no, like, you'd have to be a psychopath to walk into a room of your friends and be like, my wife and I did the most amazing thing, and she's the kindest person. That's not what we want to hear about. We want to hear, like you said, like when you, as a divorce attorney, and you walk into a party, you're like, tell me the drama, tell me the craziest thing. So I'm coming in with the funny shit, which is the drama. When you're dating a new person, there's no drama yet. It's like, we went on one date, he beat me. That never happened. So it's just like, oh, what's the sex? What's it like? Is he good? Is blah, blah, blah.
And we miss that euphoria. Not that the love fades, but it shifts from euphoria to a different love.
And by the way, what it shifts to can also be way better than that euphoria.
I think my relationship with my wife has gotten better since.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people that will tell you that. And by the way, at its best, that's what happens in a relationship, is you give up novelty in exchange for a depth of connection, a person who understands you, a person who...
And that's what I crave, to be honest. At a 29-year-old, I just want somebody to understand me and to just like be appreciated for who I am, not what I could do for them, not how I make them feel, but rather just me being me.
Look, this all makes sense to me. Again, the question I have is, how does the government get involved in that? And does the institution of marriage
real quick,
add value to it? Like, I genuinely believe what you are saying about how you feel about your wife.
Yeah.
If you had not married her, and you hadn't signed that contract, you would still feel that way.
What I could say in your favor is that maybe law hasn't caught up to society. Society has gotten more egalitarian gender roles wise, equality wise for men and women. But especially 30, 40, 50 years ago, there wasn't that. So women needed that security.
Right.
And I think that's still left over.
I still think they do. I see what he's saying, and I kind of agree. But I still think that regardless of what time period, I think having that security is important, right? Like for example, for me, what in Mexican culture, in his, it's important. The last name is important. Getting someone's last name and being truly a part of the family, that's important. If you never get married, you can never get their last name. So it's like you're never really truly a part of the family if you never take their last name. So for somebody who I would marry, I'm assuming they would want, if they were in the Mexican culture, they would want that. Now, again, it depends on, who they are, where they're from. But I just think that there's a lot more symbolic value and like just self-value that comes from that.
I think marriage has no place, but I definitely understand women's need for it more than men because they're still coming from, this equality thing is relatively recent.
My attitude about tradition, because really marriage is a tradition. It's a societal tradition. And there's really two ways to look at tradition, and I think they're both valid, okay? One is a tradition is something that worked in the past because there's reasons for it. And maybe the people before us knew some things that we haven't figured out yet because we're younger than them in the scheme of things. The other way you can look at tradition is peer pressure exerted by dead people. Okay? That's really what tradition very often is it's
Yeah. The countless examples. Like one of them is why don't we have more trains and bus lanes? And he's saying bus lanes. Yes, lanes where buses drive. Because when the roads originally built in the US, this is a little world history that people don't understand. And they say, like, why do Americans need cars? And why is cars so important? Because roads are the most important thing in America. Because when the roads were built, they're not just built to get around. Believe it or not, they're built for the specific purpose of being able to mobilize the military in any direction in the US. That is why the US overly invested in roads rather than a train system, rather than a bus system. That's why they said, you know what? Let's just make a bunch of roads that go everywhere. So if we need to move a bunch of tanks everywhere, we're not stuck to like 2 long roads. Like a lot of other countries, if you see this is actually true. If you see a lot of all these other countries, they have like 1 or 2 big roads. Like when we were in the Middle East, not me specifically, but the US, they would have to travel these 2 long roads in various different parts in various different countries because there wasn't anything created. So the tanks and shit like that couldn't get around. So that is why we have roads. And so when they developed these things, when this was the plan for the US, they were specifically built for trucks and cars. Nothing else, like big rigs and cars. So when people are like, hey, we start building around some of these roads and everywhere, like, hey, I want a local bus system. Now those local buses have to go in the same roads, actually taking longer to get places. But then it's like, we're not having the idea of why don't we just build bus lanes for just buses? That way we can move people in an effective manner if we're not going to have trains. But it's like our old way of thinking is like, no, we'll just build another lane for all cars and vehicles. But in doing that, you actually create more congestion because there's only so many ways you can exit. It's either left or right. And if you're building more lanes, you have more congestion in the middle that has to go out. So it's like, that's the old way of thinking that I'm talking about. If you live here and you live in a big city, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
peer pressure from dead people.
Okay.
Why are we doing it this way? Because my great-grandmother did it that way. Your great-grandmother didn't have a smartphone. Your great-grandmother did a whole bunch of things differently, some of which, by the way, make as much, if not more sense now, but some of which make no sense anymore. And how have we evolved as a culture to the point where if you said, my wife is my property, she was her father's property, and then he handed her to me in exchange for me giving something to her, and now I own her.
Sounds pretty fire, to be honest.
Sounds pretty fire. But some people would have an issue with it.
And there's still some countries like that. Don't want to name them, but it's kind of funny that those people, you know what? I'm going to say this. There's a lot of countries like that still. And isn't it funny when they move to the US, they want to say how America is bad and all this and stuff, but it's like, women, what are you talking about? Women in your country are property. So what is all this weird protesting going on?
Okay. Yet,
But they're property.
what is a wedding ceremony? Most wedding ceremonies gives away the bride. It's symbolic of things that most women would find terribly offensive. But because we put all these cultural things around it, it's like, oh yes, buying a woman an engagement ring. Like, how many women have you met that are so feminist that they go, I'm not accepting you giving me some expensive thing as a way of purchasing? Is it there? Fuck that! You could be a Bella Abzug feminist and you would still be like, oh yeah, no, I want a big fucking rock and it better not be lab made.
Yeah.
You know, like that's how it works.
I mean, I like Christmas presents.
Yeah, sure.
It's the same shit.
I love Christmas. And okay, so I'm a believer in Christmas and Halloween, as I always wear Halloween shirts. I can't wear Christmas shirts because honestly, there's just not a lot of good Christmas shirts that you can naturally wear throughout the year, but Halloween shirts you can. I love Christmas. I love the symbolism. I love the spirit. I love everything about a Christian Christmas, regardless if I'm Christian or not. I think they figured it out.
Doesn't make any
It's
sense.
exact same.
But we like nice things, right?
And there's no problem with that.
Yeah, of course.
But I don't then create a whole fiction as to why this is good for society.
No. I think what we agree on is two people coming together to share love and then potentially raising a family together and not leaving each other to go fuck other people and create other families at the same time.
I think kids is the biggest thing.
Exactly. It is really good and beneficial for society.
I think we can all agree on that.
And let's just use the term marriage for that.
Okay.
If, for example, every marriage required a prenup, meaning you couldn't get married unless you had agreed on the terms of that marriage. Now we've removed the government doing the prenup, which it seems to me is your biggest concern.
Yes.
You love love, you love people coming together, you love them creating families, and it's really important for society. What you don't love are these rules imposed on us that might be antiquated or not favorable for either party.
Well said.
So you're a marriage libertarian.
Exactly correct.
But I think, can every single person afford a lawyer to do all this stuff? That's my question. Can every single person afford to do this? That's where I think it's kind of like, I don't know how expensive they are. So maybe you could let me know in the comments, like maybe it's not that bad. But I just like, I don't know. I think a prenup is probably a good thing nowadays. But it's just like, can anyone really afford that? Like a normal average person.
Correct.
So what you want to do is, so I think what you're telling me, just because I don't want it to seem like you're anti-marriage, you're you're pro what we assume marriage is, which is this union, without this antiquated gunk that is then imposed on us if it doesn't go well.
If it doesn't go, what
Exactly,
my attitude is, by the way, and if you want to buy into any of the antiquated gunk, you have every right to.
And you
But
put
I
it in your
think
prenup.
you
Yeah.
and this person who you've picked out of 8 billion other options.
Yes.
You're saying this is my person.
Yeah.
And who is more qualified than the two of you to agree on the rule set?
I think reframing thing, and I'm sure you've done this in every single meeting. I'm more talking to the audience, but like I think us reframing marriage in that way and having like a real cool understanding and fair conversation about what would make us both comfortable in this. And then you learn a lot about each other.
By the way, and that's the point.
And
To me, that is the point.
Yeah.
Because that's a conversation worth having.
Yeah.
Even if you don't end up doing a prenup.
Yeah.
Having a conversation about, hey, what do we owe each other?
Yeah.
What does this mean to you?
Yeah.
Like, what do you expect of me? Because I
Yeah.
want to meet your expectations.
Yeah.
What do you want from me?
And then you learn a lot about each other through that process, because if some guy is marrying a girl, then they have to do this prenup process because that's part of the marriage. The government basically says this, hey, our rules are kind of fucked up. We're going to give you a baseline. Use some, don't use some, but we recommend you go get an attorney. And maybe there's even like a public office where they can do it. I don't know if that's...
That would be expensive. That would be so expensive.
Even have to be that complicated.
But so it's basically, so you go do it. And then you can learn a lot. If the guy goes, by the way, in this prenup, I want to make sure that you don't deviate within 10 pounds of your weight right now. You'll learn what's really important to that guy. And then you might go...
don't you want to know that before you marry this fucking guy?
And then you might go, I don't want to get married to this guy who...
She says to you, well, if you earn less than X number of dollars,
don't want to be
you
with
have
you.
to... Well, I'd like to have that conversation before we've signed up for that contract.
So I think that's like a very fair way of approaching it. But
that's requiring some type of contract negotiation to begin with. I think it's might be a good thing. I just feel like it's going to get too expensive, especially if the government requires it. These lawyers are going to get greedy. But I do think so. Like, for example, for me, if let's say, for example, if this channel really takes off and I'm starting making money, blah 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 blah. And if I get married, I probably would want to sign a prenup and not have to split the everything I own, specifically this channel, right? So it's like, because it's mostly because I'm just like, not that I'm terrified of marriage. I'm just terrified of modern American women. Very clout chasing, very, it's funny. The stereotype of gold diggers started a long time ago, but I feel like it's even worse now with modern feminism. So it's really hard to find genuine people that aren't, I guess it just depends where you live, but finding genuine people is getting harder and harder in America, at least.
I like this idea that you're not against the union. And I think a lot of times when there's criticism of marriage, people think it's criticism of two people starting a family and loving each other. Yeah. That's not it. We need that for society.
Look,
that's a good tradition.
Saying I do isn't saying I can. It's saying I'll try.
Right.
At best.
Right.
At best.
Yeah.
You know, like at best, what you say when you say I do is you're saying I'm making you a promise.
Yeah.
And if you're not fucking 3, you know people break promises, right?
Yeah.
So really what you're saying when you make a promise is, I'm going to really try.
I'm going to try my best.
I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try my best to love you. I'm going to try my best to take everything that you bring to this relationship and see it in good faith.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to attribute negative intentions. I'm going to cheer for you and you're going to cheer for me. And I'm going to see your blind spots. And when I have to call you out, I'm going to do it with love. And I'm going to try to say to you, babe, I think this is going to hurt you long term, what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Like, what is more beautiful than that? Who would disagree with that?
It's awesome.
But again, like, why not call those terms out in advance and have that conversation?
I think this is a super healthy way of looking at marriage. And if you're
But I think the issue too, I think this is also another reason, now that he's saying that, I think this is why I want to get married and stuff and do all that, but I'm just hesitant, like I'm worried about marriage as much now, because a lot of the women, I hate shitting on women because I love women. But it feels like over the years, men have gotten better at communicating, but women have gotten worse. And it's just weird because it's like, I'm really good at communicating. I've gotten better at communication. Communication, I understand, is better. But it's like the level of communication that's the stand. Again, this is just American women. This is just Americans, not other countries. Other countries, ironically, are still very reasonable and normal. So, that's why I say it's American women. But the communication of American women is it's awful. It's so bad. And then on top of that, it's like the standard for American women is like, well, they don't have to give anything into the relationship. They should just get everything because it's just them. And it's like, it's that on top of no communication. That's what scares me. So you can't problem solve with American women. It's really hard to.
Tell me right now that the legislation has already changed to adjust some of the antiquated ideas that were there to obviously protect women, but now are no longer needed.
And blah, 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 blah. It depends on the state, too. You got to be careful with some of these states when getting married because of how the laws are written. So let's say you get married. I don't know every single state, but let's say you get married in a state where women ultimately, no matter what, get pretty much custody of the kids. You lose your kids, even though you might be the better parent, the better financially stable parent. You'll lose your kids no matter what. So it's one of those things where like you gotta. I see what he's saying. You really got to put thought into before going into it, and understanding it, and making the right decisions based on that.
What you're basically saying is the government is going, hey, we got to update the prenup. If the government has a prenup, they're basically going, marriages deserve prenups.
Right. And the government, by the way, is changing it, but they're changing it the way the government changes things, which is way late in the game.
Yeah.
So it's like they don't catch up.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason why the IRS's lawyers and the tax lawyers that get paid millions of dollars, the tax lawyers that get paid millions of dollars are always 4 steps ahead of these fucking guys.
And
like the top of the class goes to work for these firms. Why? Because they have every incentive to do that. So for me, saying, you know what, I trust the government so much that I know they'll change the law to protect me, that's the most naive thing I've ever heard of human beings say.
And even if you want to look at the government acting in good faith, they're like, hey, there are these people who go, hey, we got a problem. There are these divorced women. They're fucking homeless right now, or they're going back to living with their parents. Like, they're struggling.
Or like, look at, there's a law right now. There's several states trying to pass a law where if you dead name your kid, you could end up, it would be considered a abuse or a hate crime or something like that. So imagine sending your parents, your mom or your dad, to jail and ruining their life for, let's say a kid is like, you know, in the process of transitioning, or they're in a phase, right? It's a phase. Or there's like, you know what I mean? Like they're in that beginning phase and they basically send their mom or their dad to jail because they got dead named and they did that whole thing. And then later on they like, you know what? Maybe I'm not. And then they change their mind and they just ruin their parents' lives for that. Imagine. That's how stupid this law is. I just think it's crazy. Some of the, and that's a prime example of why you don't want to count on laws to change or not to change.
To eat, they can't even take care of their kids, so now they're not around their kids. We got to do something to protect that. They overcorrect.
And this is the mistake. Like people come into this and they think prenups were designed for wealthy people only, right? And by the way, there's a reason why. Because look, there's times where a person comes to the marriage, they have a tremendous amount of assets.
I want to talk about that.
And they say, look, I've got a ton of money. You know, if in an alternate universe, you are you now at your level of success. And you meet a lovely young woman and you say, you know what, let's get it. Let's do this thing. Do you mean if you get divorced in 3 months, she should get half of everything? That's fucking crazy. That's crazy.
And I think even the government would say that that's not how it goes.
That isn't how it works.
But maybe there was a time where it was.
Well, and there's still very complicated things, which is how guys like me make a lot of money. Because what happens is we have what's called transmutation, which is if you had a separate property asset, meaning something you owned before the marriage, and then you get married and you mix an asset that you earned during the marriage or income earned during the marriage with your premarital money, you turn the separate into marital. So we have what's called the marital presumption, which is basically, so like think of it, I always tell clients, think about it like, you know, your separate property premarital money is like a bowl of water. And marital money is like a drop of red dye. You drop that in, you can't take it back out. The whole thing's pink.
So if you're doing renovations on it, with your marital money, now all of a sudden you're saying the property becomes
it's all marital. Transmuted.
But you could make the argument that by doing those renovations, it increased the value of that property $5 million.
100%. And you know, I get paid a lot of money per hour to make that argument.
Right.
And then the other lawyer gets paid a bunch of money by the hour to say, no, there was no donative intent, there was no consideration.
But the fact that there's even a conversation. So the reality is why are we making money on this? Why couldn't the two of you in advance just sit down and say, hey, you know what? Let's put aside some, let's.
Oh, he must be. Oh, you know what I'm thinking. You know why he's probably frustrated. It's not seeing these two petty couples. It's having to argue with the lawyer of a petty couple. You know what I mean? Oh my God, I would. You know what's funny? Yeah, I'd probably have as much gray hair as him if I was a lawyer. I could not argue. Look, he got the vein on his head. I know for a fact he got that vein out when he's talking to these other lawyers. Because just based on the stories I've heard about divorce, what is it? Negotiations? Well, or like, what is the term where they're like, you're separating things? I don't remember, but it's just like, yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Let's decide the rule set. If we put it in your name, it's this. If we put it in joint sets, we'll split 50-50. If we use premarital money, we'll do it this way. Have that fucking conversation.
This is great. I love how, like, you obviously you're an amazing communicator and you're very spirited about this, but like, the spirit to me seems to come from this place of, guys, this could be so much easier.
And so much better. So much better.
But there is this negative stigma about a prenup because we only think about these people with tons of assets that are doing it to protect it from a gold digger. We don't think about people who are building a life.
But in fairness, it's much worse now because of clout and all that stuff. And so it's like, I don't want to say that it's unjustified. It is very justified. But at the same time, if that person is really that scared of that individual for gold digging, he probably shouldn't be marrying him anyway. So it's just one of those things where like American relationship and dating is just completely ruined. It's just completely ruined right now. And again, all this that I was saying, that I don't apply it to any countries, any other countries, or any dating overseas, because it seems like, for the most part, that we've seen on this channel and just learned in general, it seems much more reasonable and normal, pretty much everywhere else for the most part.
Like in a lot of our circumstances, we don't really have that. I mean, we're doing okay, but we don't have like tons of money. And then once we get married, we start building this amazing life. And that's probably the majority of people that are getting married. The majority of people aren't coming from $300 million.
No. And by the way, like people that don't have as much are the ones who really have to worry about how do we divide it and protect it. Because if you got hundreds of millions of dollars,
give her
fuck it,
20
you're
million.
both right. Like, but if you're in a situation where, like most people, you're kind of basically getting by, well, now you're gonna have 2 electric bills and 2 cable bills and 2 everything. So to me, like, you know, what's so funny is when early in my career.
That's a good point. If anything, yeah, that actually makes sense. If you have less money, you should probably go for that, because now you when you divorce, both of you actually need the money. So you're fighting because you actually need it. Because that's like the best thing to give you a good head start in your new life. That's crazy. Yeah, he makes a good point.
Career.
I'm sorry to cut you here, but it is really interesting to like understand your perspective on this. You're not against the institution. You're like, it could be so much more
It just could be better.
And you've gone through so many where you're like, we're still bickering over this because you guys didn't make this very easy decision early on.
And I just don't think it makes it unromantic.
Yeah.
Like we all know
How do you
life
cross that bridge?
ends.
Yeah, how would you?
Does that mean life's not, like, did you ever go like, well, I'm going to die someday, so I might as well just die now? Like, no, like the beauty is going through the process. Like you're watching a movie and someone says, oh, the movie's going to end. You don't go, well, fuck it, I'm not even going to watch it. Like, no, the beauty is to watch the movie and know that this is a temporary thing. Look, every marriage ends.
Yeah.
It ends in death or in divorce.
Yeah.
Your marriage will end, I promise. I hope it ends in death. That's a weird thing to say to a person. I hope your marriage ends in death. But I do. I hope that's how your marriage ends. Because the only 2 options are just going to end in death or divorce.
Right.
So you have life insurance. No one ever would look at you and go, you're so morbid with that life insurance. Like, why would you think you have
You'd be surprised, bro. You'd be surprised.
to do that?
Yeah,
I'm protecting these people that I love. Like, I know something's good. Okay, so what is wrong with 2 people?
Oh, we got to see more of this. That was good. Oh my gosh. Let me know in the comments down below if you want to see more. Did we like that discussion? Did we feel that we came away with what we were looking for in this discussion? I'll be honest, he kind of convinced me. Convinced me pretty good. Maybe this is the best way to go about things. These guys are much, lawyers are much more smarter than me, obviously, but I think he's making a valid point in the sense that maybe we should really examine what the purpose of the marriage is. I think that's a great conversation. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you agree, disagree? If so, let me know. Love you guys. Check out the next one. Bye-bye. This video is brought to you actually by viewers like you. Thank you so much for subscribing and being part of my journey and allowing me to be a part of yours. Let's create new memories this 2025 on our road to 1 million subscribers. And with all that jazz out of the way, I just want to say thank you so much. I love y'all and enjoy the video.